to come here once again and share some of my views. The theme of the series Karmayoga has direct impact on our day-to-day life. Speakers before me have shared their thoughts on several aspects of Karmayoga, and let me offer a bit of mine at the lotus feet of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. We humans live primarily on two planes, the material and the spiritual. We are always caught in the world of dualities, and truly speaking, we cannot exist without them. In divine reality, they are extremely and intricately woven into a kind of a fabric for a greater and higher divine purpose. However, to our ignorant minds, in conflict of the dualities, they appear to be entirely separate and disconnected. Traditional wisdom tells us to renounce the material world, get away from pain and suffering, enter the spiritual world and find divine in yourself, and be from the cycles of birth and rebirth. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is collective yoga, the Purna yoga, the yoga of perfection, the Purna Advaita. And here in integral yoga, all life is yoga. To do this, we need not run away from the society, from our responsibilities and duties, and seek individual salvation and expect the divine life upon earth to happen. All we need is a paradigm shift in our thinking, in our attitude and approach. In our day-to-day life, we live with our average human consciousness, and that is separate from our true self. And we are actually led by the common habits of mind, life, and body, which actually are the laws of ignorance. In our day-to-day life, we only live to satisfy our desires, likes and dislikes, work for some personal gains, maybe under some mental control or moral control, or sometimes with mental ideals, isn't it? Now let us pause for a moment and recall those days when we were still students or studying, when we had just started our professional career or even a startup. Most of us at one point in time or the other during these periods would have gone through self-improvement books or attended a few training sessions or heard talks on similar platforms. Surely would have got motivated and inspired and would have passed several resolutions. When we look back and try to draw the essence of what we learned, we probably arrive at two very critical and convincing aspects of positive thinking and positive attitude. Of course, at that point in time, the spiritual touch was not there, but still the positive thinking and positive attitude were two critical aspects. We were told that these are required to be successful in our business, to achieve goals, to achieve our target, to be successful in our profession, and also probably in the administrative hierarchy to reach higher positions and so on. This, we know, it never had a spiritual touch with it, because the sense of always expectation or the sense of I was always involved in it. But then, as we grew older, or probably as we grow older and mature, under soft and hard blows of life experiences, we realize that this approach may give us some momentary relief or may even propel us some burst of enthusiasm, but we cannot avoid carrying the burden of stress, pressure, being judgmental, being critical of others, dissatisfied, and so on. And this is because we always try to justify our actions and set huge expectations from others. I have done, it is his duty to do, he is expected to appreciate me. I'm sure he will like me. All expectations are kind of expecting very favorable results. And when we don't get these favorable results, we try to blame others and the blame game starts. And we are completely devastated. We start looking for something else in life. In its true sense, today's topic, right action with right attitude, is actually the yoga of action, the essence of Karmayoga. Right attitude leads to thinking, to right thinking, and right thinking leads to right action, and right actions obviously give rise to right outcomes. Situations we encounter in our day-to-day life usually arise because of our own intentions or probably because of our own actions, and sometimes without our involvement. Did we choose to be born in a particular family? No. Did we choose to be born to such and such a parents? No. I never had a choice to decide how my looks should be. No. When we encounter a situation that is beyond our control, we tend to call it as destiny. Let us take an example. Out of the blues, I may win a lottery of 1 million. While purchasing the lottery ticket, I may be aspiring or I may wish that this ticket should win me a lottery, but I had no choice in picking up a particular lottery ticket that this would give me a win. No, I didn't have a choice. But once after winning the amount, once after winning the lottery, how do I spend the money? How do I use the money is my choice. And it depends on my attitude and the discretionary capabilities. Now, right attitude shows us the right path, and problems are all common to everybody. But the inner attitude that makes difference. I'm just reminded of our beloved President APJ. He used to very frequently quote whenever he used to go to schools and colleges, he used to motivate children what kind of an attitude we should have. This quote, I'm reminded of it, like, all birds take shelter to avoid rains, but it is only eagles. They soar high above the clouds and avoid rains. It is only human species who are endowed with the ability to use our discretion and make a choice. And this is absolutely clear. Now let us look at the story of a balloon seller. Most of us have heard it, but I feel this is important and let us recapitulate it. It's an extremely nice story. There was a balloon seller who used to sell colorful balloons, blue, green, red, orange. And in the middle of the city, at the center of the city, where a lot of children used to come and gather with their parents. And he would release the balloons, colored balloons, which would soar high into the sky. Children used to see, they used to enjoy, and then they used to buy the balloons from him. And this is how he sustained his daily life. He earned enough money for his daily sustenance. But one particular day, a balloon seller felt that somebody is pulling his jacket. And when he turned and then he saw a tiny little boy pulling his jacket with black colored balloon in his hand. And the boy asked the balloon seller, "Sir, is this my black balloon also capable of soaring high?" The balloon seller got completely thrown away. And then, with all the compassion, with all empathy, he told the boy, "My dear child, it is not the color of the balloon that makes the balloon fly or soar high into the skies. It is what is important is what is inside the balloon." If he used to fill, obviously, the helium, it is not the regular air. Because of the helium, the balloons used to soar extremely high. And so this is a beautiful story where it conveys the meaning, how important and how critical is what is inside us, what is deep within us, and that is what it manifests outside. We all have heard, when the egg breaks from the forces within, it dawns to a new life. And when it breaks from outside, it gets crushed. Doesn't these tickle our conscience? The attitude inside us manifest our outside actions. And this brings us to the next landing. What actually is the right attitude? What actually is the right action? What actually is karma? In our day-to-day life, we are engaged in plethora of activities, and most of the times we are on autopilot mode. We keep doing things mechanically, repetitively, for achieving some personal needs, personal organization goals, and some monetary gains, or in general material gains, so to say. There are several inevitable activities that are happening within our body. Take, for example, breathing, our heartbeat, coordination between our body movements, eye movements. All these happen within our body automatically, which we are not even aware of, or we don't put any extra efforts for them to happen. The heartbeat goes on for lifelong without any efforts. We are not even bothered about it. Only when it pains, we start looking at it. We just take them for granted without any sense of gratitude. This is essentially due to our insensitivity. Sri Aurobindo, in his magnum opus Life Divine, observes that in the first paragraph itself, he says, probably the highest and probably the earliest preoccupation of man since time immemorial has been in search of God, bliss, knowledge, and freedom. Most of us, most of the time, spend our lives in a state of ignorance. And this state obviously encompasses all negative forces or negative states like stress, tension, pain, fear, frustration, loneliness, and so on. While we live superficially, we never live in the present moment. We do not give any importance to the power of now. We are not aware of what exactly the present moment is and what exactly the power of now is. We either keep thinking of the past or of the future, or the future results that we are going to encounter because of our past actions or because of our past karma, which would probably impact the future. We carry non-existing problems in our minds and bogged down by them. It is like the story of the two monks who are walking, one senior monk and then the junior monk, who is walking and then they're about to cross the river. They see a young girl sitting on the banks of the river, helpless, without able to cross the river. And when these two monks approach her, the senior monk lifts the girl in his arms and carry her across the river and leave her on the banks. Now this action of the senior monk was never digested or was never understood by the junior monk. He always started thinking how this senior monk, my senior, could do this. And after traveling for some distance, he asked the senior monk, why did you touch and carry the girl against all those principles, what we have been taught as monks? We are not supposed to touch. We are not even supposed to think about such things. Then senior monk asked the junior, when have we been taught not to help others in need of distress? The junior monk obviously had no reply. But anyway, the senior monk then told the other monk, I left her on the banks long time back at the river, but it is you, without even touching her, you are carrying her even in her absence. And this is actually the play of the mental attitude. We forget that it is this present that becomes our past and future, and we cannot afford any procrastination. This calls for a change in our approach, in our attitude. This calls for transformation of our nature. When we are conscious of the present moment, we are actually connected to all the surroundings and probably which brings out the hidden, innovative, creative best in us. And when our instruments of work, the karmendriyas, our hands, legs, eyes, and whole body become conscious of the present moment, and the capacity for work may seem to have no bounds at all. Even if you take according to science, how does it define work? It considers work as done only when the force acts on an object and there is a displacement in the object. That means there is a change in the position of the object from X position to Y position, or there is a movement. If the movement is in the same direction of the applied force, then we call it as positive work, or if it is the other way, it is the negative work, right? And doesn't it apply in the spiritual work also? It does apply in our spiritual work also, even in the yoga. The force, the conscious force, our ardent aspiration, intense aspiration, what we apply as a force. And if there is no displacement, if there is no upward movement, or if we do not grow or rise in our state of consciousness, from the present state of consciousness, the work has not to be done. It is the spiritual work. So even in spirituality, when we talk about applying a conscious force, and then the work, what we expect and then what we anticipate is at least to raise is from the present existing ordinary state of mind to a higher state of mind. The present moment, to be in the present, is the most important thing. Automatically, the past, the future, everything will take care of themselves. Being in the present is an attitude. What happens? We need to focus everything. People say that you have to take a holistic look, but Sri Aurobindo says we have to take an integral look. There is a subtle difference between holistic look and an integral look. In holistic look, you actually take everything that encompasses around you and then probably understand the collage of them and then make your own interpretation. But in an integral view, though you take from all the surroundings, all aspects, the essence of all the surroundings, what we have, but they all focus on one particular point, and that should be the integral view. The power of now, or the power of present moment, is absolutely important. Just for example, take the game of pole vault, where the athlete crosses the high barrier with the help of a flexible pole. And this sport cannot be played if one's focus is distracted or is not in the present moment. All things have to happen simultaneously or in a fraction of a second. The height judgment, the running distance. And there is a particular spot where he has to place his pole and then take the leap. And this leaping from the right spot, the flexibility of the body corresponding to the bending of the pole in the opposite direction, and the mind-body coordination are extremely critical. If all these things together do not act, do not respond positively with the power of now, or with the presence of at the present moment, which is the core of body consciousness, the athlete will not succeed in crossing over the barrier. And next attitude, which actually comes to my mind, is the respecting of the matter that is surrounding us. Without matter, the manifestation would not be possible at all. Establishing harmony between them actually is absolutely critical in integral yoga. Running away from the society, rejecting everything is not a solution at all in attaining the yoga siddhi. This rejection or acceptance has to be based only on the psychic insistence and not on our vital and mental insistences. Nor by being in the society and focusing only on the material progress is also not a solution. The real solution lies in bringing yoga into our action. Then only the cosmic will of transformation can be manifested upon earth. Sri Aurobindo also talks about 4 instruments in their combined effort necessary for the yoga siddhi. What are those 4 instruments? The Shastras, that is the source of wisdom, the source of knowledge, the scriptures, which is available to us by grace of the God. So these Shastras, which give us tremendous amount of true knowledge, it is not a kind of Google knowledge, but what the true knowledge, which the scriptures, the Shastras provide us. And the second important instrument in attaining the yoga siddhi, he says utsaha, the enthusiasm, an ardent aspiration, and to learn from these Shastras, to know what exactly is true knowledge, to understand it from the scriptures. Everything has to be so that inherent, a deep essence to understand things and enthusiasm. All this is required to understand that utsaha, that energy we should bring in to understand the scriptures or the Shastras. And the third most important thing which has to be clubbed, he says, is actually the Guru, who actually guides us to understand from the Shastras and to take us through the process of implementation of the true knowledge, what we understand from these Shastras, and with our inner aspiration, which helps us. And then it is this, through the guidance of the Guru, who can take us. Lastly, and last part of the instrument being is the Kala, the time actually. And everything has a specific time. We know Mother has said this several times, that before you choose the divine, divine chooses you. If we aspire to make all life as yoga, Sri Aurobindo has said all life is yoga. What does it mean? We know that the essence of Mahabharata was given on the battlefield. Lord Krishna would have taught Arjuna in the cozy comfort palaces of Kauravas and then Pandavas. He did not do it. It was right in the middle of the battlefield where the action was the most happening time at that particular moment. Why did he choose? He tells Arjuna that you are just a nimitta matra. They've already been killed. Do your duty. And that is how the whole thing happens. So do we mean to say that a battlefield, which actually where we see the deaths, and there were unimaginable happenings that shook the war of Kurukshetra. Was Lord Krishna was unspiritual? Why did he choose the battle of action? Why did he choose the field where the action is happening? And this is why the importance of Karma Yoga actually comes into the picture. If we aspire to make all life as yoga, and the right attitude behind the action has to be egoless and selfless, and completely dedicated to the divine, without having any expectations about the outcome. Complete samarpana bhava. The attitude that every activity done is for the divine, and everything that happens for me is for my best, and is the underlying principle of Karma Yoga. By doing things within the framework of ethics and moral does not qualify us for Karma Yoga, as I may still have my selfish interest embedded in my actions without offering it to the divine. We hear the ethics of canons of ethics. We hear so many things, moral things, ethic, everything. It's absolutely perfect. We may be absolutely in the frameworks of morality. We may follow all the ethics that is required. But if at all there is, even in the presence of all the ethics and morals, if there is no devotion or no offering it to the divine, and without any selfish interest, it does not qualify to be called as Karma Yoga. Even in the midst of not having favorable results, the attitude of certainty that would come to me at appropriate time, as it is he who knows best for me, and it is he who knows what exactly is essential, what is necessary for me. This is the state of kind of unconditional faith in the Supreme that is called for in Karma Yoga. When we have this attitude, we are not perturbed by the outcome, and the right kind of attitude. This is the kind of right attitude that is what is to be expected. When the action becomes impersonal, with the right attitude, actually a sense of happiness and joy prevails. It actually comes out, it emerges as the action done is for the highest cause and highest purpose. And that is the Atma Dharma. A soldier, for example, in the battle, fighting for the country, drops his weapon, ammunition, and then says, "Let the will of the Lord to be done." Does that fall under the category of Karma Yoga? No, it doesn't fall. He has to do his duty. He is the instrument. And what is his duty? His duty is to save his country. He has to fire the bullets. The same thing applies to his enemy also. For him, protecting his country becomes the prime criteria. So don't expect the Lord to help you, the grace to come to you without doing anything, without putting in our efforts, with the right attitude. In the battlefield, the soldier's attitude is to protect his country. And then that's all. That is what his duty is, and that is what he is supposed to do at that point in time. With the complete presence of mind, he has to carry out what he has, what his Atma Dharma is. We also should note that the opposite of happiness is not sorrow. Is sorrow. And this sorrow comes to us because of our ignorance. We human beings have tendency to enjoy tamas and resist change and never leave our comfort zone at all. We take pride in patting our own back and also have lots of expectations from others. When our expectations fail us, we enter in the worlds of sorrow. And when the action is done with the right attitude, clubbed with devotion, it leads to true knowledge, and that becomes the Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. In simple words, work becomes worship. I'm sure you would remember the yesterday's speaker was talking about work becoming worship. It is difficult for us because we are all human beings. It is, though we may talk in a very limited manner, depending on our state of understanding of things, entirely making work as worship is a difficult task. But actually, let us begin. At least we should have that attitude towards work and worship. Now, let us begin with work and worship as two different entities, no problem. In the initial stages, let the work and worship be separate. And as we come, it becomes, we are habituated to this work and worship concept. Slowly there is an attitude which actually comes into us and tell us that work as worship. And this in time, when the work and worship transforms into work as worship, and then further it gets transformed into work is worship status. As Sri Aurobindo says, the right attitude in yoga has to be three-pronged. The attitude of trust, attitude of dedication, and then attitude of obedience and offering. Attitude of consecration and attitude of sacrifice. We offer every human activity to the will of the Supreme in the synthesis of yoga. Sri Aurobindo writes, work or action done without right attitude is like a thick heap of damp logs of wood from which the flame cannot leap. If we do not have that attitude, it is just like damp logs, heap of, Sri Aurobindo's language is, of course, not comparable at all. Look at the beauty he compares. A heap of damp logs of wood from which the flame cannot leap at all. For the divine life upon earth to happen, yoga of action is indispensable. Isn't it? We cannot negate the matter because the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Truth Consciousness, from the summit of its consciousness comes down, descends down into the matter, and then evolves through the matter, and then the evolutionary process starts. How can we reject matter? Matter is the foundation. Matter is the fundamental thing. It is through which the manifestations to happen. It is through which the divine life upon earth has to manifest. The yoga of action calls for sacrifice, forgiveness, humility, and not self-aggrandizing and boasting, etc. Our thoughts, emotions, physical and mental activities, state of happiness, our mind games are all extremely intricate, well connected to the state of our consciousness. Our state of consciousness at the level of karma or action has to transcend to transform karma into karma yoga. Sri Aurobindo refers to karma yoga also as the yoga of spiritual action, which begins when there is luminosity or luminous aware of the guide and the guidance, when one feels the power of working with oneself as the instrument and participant of the divine. Reminded of two beautiful lines from Savitri, the unfelt self deep within who is our guide, the unknown God above who is the goal. So he clearly gives an indication what exactly is the starting point. Deep within, our true self is the guide. And up above, the unknown God is the goal. So between this guide, who is deep within, and the God above, actually is our adventure of consciousness, is our spiritual journey, is our evolutionary progress. And what is the starting point? The starting point is actually the fountainhead of happiness, which is the true happiness. When we start the right actions, we understand when we start with the right attitude, right actions are preceded by the right thoughts, and right thoughts actually are preceded by the positive thinking, positive attitude, and then positive attitude actually is triggered out of this true inner happiness, what we call it as our true self deep within, and the source of true happiness germinates by becoming one with our true self. So the first stage of 3 steps of transformation, what Sri Aurobindo talks of the 3 steps, psychicization, spiritualization, and supramentalization. The first step is psychicization. That is what we just talked about, the unfelt self who is deep within. So that is where, I mean, we all remember that Sri Aurobindo says, my yoga starts where all other yogas stop. And this is what it means. I mean, the first step itself is understanding becoming one with the deep inside with our true self. Now let us look at the few types of attitudes to be fostered in Karma Yoga. The attitude of right action, Swadharma Buddhi, our conscious choice to do the right as per our Atma Dharma. This is absolutely important. And we looked at the example of a soldier battling for his country. And his right attitude, he has to fight for the country. He can not remain silent. And this attitude of right action, with a deep understanding that I am only an instrument of the divine and only nimitta matra, this is one of the important attitudes of Karma Yoga. So the second attitude is the attitude of dedication, samarpana buddhi, the attitude of devotion, that of offering, that of sacrifice, the spirit of yajna. All these things are also required. The third attitude is the attitude of detachment. We actually talked about it, renunciation of our attachment, of the outcome of the karma phala. All these things are the karma phala which we have to take. Then the fourth important thing is the attitude of unconditional acceptance, absolute surrender, accepting the outcome without any expectations, absolute belief in the supreme and whatever may be the outcome that is best for me. There is one more important attitude, the attitude of equanimity, samatvam. As always, being in a happy state, irrespective of the outcome of our action, is actually the state of highest blessedness. It is not that we have to do things we dislike. I mean, this is what Sri Aurobindo says. It is not that we have to do things we dislike, but we have to cease to dislike. What a beautiful sentence it is. To do things only what we like reflects the domination of our vital and untransformed natures. In this state of equanimity, we are able to transcend the conflicts and do things joyfully as an offering to the divine. The pain or the joy, the good fortune or the ill fortune, the praise or the blame should all become a spontaneous sacrifice to the light, to the divine. This should happen not only at the mind level, but also from all parts of our being. What exactly are all parts of our being? We are not even aware of our all parts of our being. We actually, I will quickly summarize this, all parts of being. In Sri Aurobindo's yoga, we are all comprised of three systems. One is the surface system. Second one is the subliminal system. And third system comprising of series of ascending and descending orders. The surface system, which actually comprises of our physical, vital, and mental levels, only with the exterior consciousness. And all these, then Sri Aurobindo goes in detail that what exactly is the surface system, in our outer system, what exactly, how physical and vital mental consciousness work. This is, and in the second system of the subliminal system, which actually comprises of our inner being, innermost being, the inner mind, inner life, all these psychic entities supporting them. All these things actually come and in the subliminal system. The subliminal system actually is capable of directly receiving the interacting with the outside universal forces. The third system, part of the formation, is the vertical system, which comprises of series of ascending and descending planes of consciousness from the inconscient level to the supramental consciousness. Sri Aurobindo has built a huge bridge, a beautiful highway to travel, to take up the journey within this. The distance, the gap, the chasm, as he calls, is extremely wide. We need a bridge, we need a guru, we need utsaha, we need the scriptures, the source of knowledge. And Sri Aurobindo, our guru, has given all these things. And one more important complementary thing that goes with equanimity is the endurance. For example, one of the important stepping stones for achieving equanimity, as it helps us to sustain attitude of being calm and quiet under all conditions. While being in the state of equanimity, Mother has given us several indications in her science teaching, giving her in Science of Living, stepping back and then see how the other, what exactly is the other point of view is. Only then it is possible for us to have integral vision, not only from our viewpoint, but also from the other's point of view. The Mother also talks about the attitude of absolute sincerity. This integral vision is not possible without absolute sincerity. True sincerity is possible only when we are not attached to the outcome, not biased, preferential, or repulsive. All things have to be concentrated to the divine. And the attitude of gratitude, the attitude of being humility under all circumstances is absolutely important. We talk about Samajaruna, we talk about Pitraruna, we talk about Devaruna. We take so much from the environment, we take so much from the society, we take so much, everything we take it for granted. When we know that we cannot survive 2 minutes without the air, without the prana, throughout our life, we keep using this beautifully converted oxygen, which is made available. And it is a different topic altogether, as how throughout the universe, all these universal constants are being maintained. How the quality of air is maintained, how percentage of oxygen is maintained through billions and billions of years. That is altogether a different subject. The glory of the Supreme is, we cannot stop anywhere at all. The attitude of gratitude, we should be able to at least gratify to the depth of our, with all the humility at our command. In conclusion, I quote Sri Aurobindo, equality, renunciation of all desire for the fruit of our works, action done as a sacrifice to the Supreme Lord of our nature and all the nature. These are the first three Godward approaches in Gita's way of Karma Yoga. Synthesis of Yoga, page 105. Dear Bandhus, I think I'll stop here. This is all what I had to say. And once again, thank you very much, Sampatji, for the opportunity to be with all the Guru Bandhus in this wonderful satsang. And once again, at the lotus feet of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Thank you very much.
That was very thought-provoking, Doctor. I request James Ji to share his thoughts about this talk now, after which we will take the question and answers.
Yeah.
To do that, it's a wonderful session. Explained so clearly the connection, the endless connection between attitude and action. The two facets endlessly revolve around the other. What we have inside us manifests outside. So a change of attitude is latently very, very necessary. And you've explained the different aspects of attitude and what is comprised within attitude. The need to be present, egoless action, respect for matter, these sort of things. It was a wonderful session. I enjoyed it immensely, and I'll leave it to questions now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James Ji. The first question we have is from a participant from New Zealand who is new to the yoga of the mother but feels drawn towards it. So his question is, what is the difference between Karma Yoga and the mother's yoga?
Okay. Oh, something happened. Am I audible? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Karma Yoga is what we discussed now. When we bring the element of complete offering, complete devotion, and everything what we do, every action of ours should be dedicated to the Mother and to the Divine. And without him or without his approval, nothing moves in the world. And that element of offering, that sense of devotion, that everything, whatever we do, the smallest action has to be dedicated to the divine, and then without any expectation of the fruits, then it becomes the yoga of action. And that is the Karma Yoga. Sri Aurobindo's yoga and Mother's yoga are same. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is integral yoga, where actually, when he says all life is yoga, that means every action that gets involved, that comes in our way throughout our lifetime, has to become an yoga. He very clearly says that running away and then renunciating the world, renunciating the society in which we are living, we cannot run away from the society and seek only individual salvation. That is not yoga at all. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is collective yoga. It is not just the individual seeking of individual salvation, it is actually seeking of the collective salvation of the yoga, is the essence of integral yoga. When collective yoga happens, then only it is not only becoming one with the divine, it is not only it is not only the salvation or not the moksha, as most of the traditional yogic systems tell us, but Sri Aurobindo's yoga is not only becoming one with the divine, but bringing down that supramental consciousness down into the consciousness of the earth and transformation of the life, or making the earth divine, life divine upon earth. This is the essence of Mother's yoga. And Mother's yoga, in two simple terms, Mother's Karma Yoga becomes a part of integral yoga. Sri Aurobindo takes for everything we need when all life has to become yoga. Only karma yoga need not be sufficient. When we dedicate our actions to the divine, to the Supreme Lord, how do we do it? We need to have absolute surrender, and we need to have absolute faith in the Supreme. So when we have to have absolute faith and divine, it is possible only through Bhakti Yoga. And so that is where the beautiful harmony between Bhakti Yoga and then Karma Yoga comes into the picture. When these two things come together, automatically the knowledge comes into the picture. So this is how Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, everything gets integrated. And then in integral yoga and the yoga of Purna Yoga, Sri Aurobindo takes a leap forward. How do we go forward? He says, like all others stay, once you become one with the divine, that is the end of life. You become free of birth, free from the cycles of birth and rebirth. But for Sri Aurobindo, this is where he leaps far ahead of all other traditional systems. And then he says, man is only just a transitional being. And there has to be, the bridge what he has created, we have a long distance to travel, and it is a process of evolutionary journey. And that is what Sri Aurobindo's yoga is. And that is how the Karma Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, all other yogas actually, even Hatha Yoga blends into Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga for the simple reason, how do we improve our body consciousness? How do we enhance our body consciousness? We looked at the examples of two beautiful examples of the pole vault, for example, how our body consciousness can come into the picture, how discipline can come into the picture. All these things actually are beautifully get synergized in Mother's Yoga, and Karma Yoga becomes a part of Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga.
Thank you for that. We have another question which asks for an elaboration of the differences between the holistic and the integral approach.
Okay. Suppose, let me give you an example of the present crisis itself. We are all going through an extremely complicated phase in the Earth's era. Let us talk about sustainability. We are all talking about global warming and its impact, everything we are talking about. Now we are all talking about sustainable development, we are talking about holistic development, and all these things we are talking about. Now, how do we understand the holistic approach and the integral approach? I would like to give you through this very mundane example which we are coming across in our day-to-day professionalism also, actually. So, and then the true sustainability is not possible without the psychological or without the participation or sincere participation of every individual. One has to consciously participate into it, and we should respect the environment, and then it is possible. Now coming to the question. Now, the entire challenges that the globe faces, they're all called the global challenges, are all categorized into 17 important goals that we call it as 17 sustainability development goals. Okay. Now each goal has a focus. Each goal has, one is education, might be education, eradication of poverty, communication network, the good living, sanitation, all these things, all the problems what the common man faces are categorized, and then they're put into different baskets. Now the holistic approach takes all these things into consideration and then deals with every basket separately. Right? Now you may achieve and resolve the challenges pertaining to a particular basket, all to all the basket. Now, and this is the holistic approach. And then probably you say that, okay, from this basket we have resolved, from this basket it is solved, from this challenges is solved. But when you have an integral approach, By by resolving all the challenges from each basket, what exactly is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is sustainable development. Is ultimate goal is the improvement of the surroundings, to become one with the nature, to seamlessly integrate with the nature, to seamlessly become one with the nature. It is the nature which is provided us to the Almighty. Now, in integral view, in integral vision, we have actually a complete picture of the challenge, of the issue, what we want to know. But in holistic picture, it doesn't arise there. So this is how, because mind is not capable of a complete integral vision. It always breaks it into too many parts and then try to assimilate them, try to collage them, and then try to come to its own conclusion. But in integral vision, it is the vision of the identity, and it is the understanding of the full truth. And it becomes possible only when we identify ourselves with the problem or with the challenge. And identification with the challenge or with the problem comes only when you're completely, you become one with the state of consciousness. And then that is how you start identifying, and then you will have a complete integral vision. And this is essentially the difference between holistic approach and an integral approach.
I'll take the last question for the day because we are out of time. Karma yoga is something that we have to, it is in pretty much every instant of our lives, we have to live it that way. Do you have any practices that you can suggest that will help us in this?
Yeah, it's very simple. As mother says, there are only two things which are required. I know it becomes extremely complicated. It becomes all these things with lots of working. We're all many professionals. Of course, I am not a professional now. With many people who are surrounding with their career, focus on their career, etc. All we have to do is two simple things. Remember the mother at every step. And then whenever we react, and then offer it to her. I'll tell you the grace, how I think I was attending to one of the sessions, as one of the speakers says, the way Mother's grace works is something unimaginable. Only one has to actually feel about it. If you give me 1 minute time, I would like to share a beautiful example how this grace works, and then that answers this person's question. I was at the peak of my career. I'm basically a civil engineer, and it was my peak of the career, and then we were doing an extremely prestigious project for Government of India, for one of the defense forces. So when we were doing this project, we had exactly 125 days from the day of starting and then from the day of closing. There was supposed to be President of India who was supposed to come and then inaugurate the project. And in construction of a big project, prestigious project, we have lots and lots of challenges, problems, everything come together. And unfortunately, we had, on the third day itself, we had this problem. Huge problem. We didn't know what to do, etc., etc. And then we worked day and night. The work was completely 24 hours, round the clock it was happening. And luckily, believe me, on that day, when work resumed after 24 hours, we had never gone home, we never slept, we never had food. I just came to the car and then say, I'll just take I don't know how that day Life Divine was in my car. And then I took a decision that I used to be more there in the night time because of several reasons. So I always started reading Life Divine. When the work was going on there, I used to sit in my office room and then started reading Life Divine. And one day, when the chief commander of the forces, he came and then said, Mr. Sabnis, what are you doing? The work is happening there and then you're reading Life Divine of Sri Aurobindo, sitting here. I said, what is important to you, sir? The work should go on without any problem. I told him very clearly that as long as I keep reading this book, your work will go on smoothly. And then he laughed at me because then he told me that he did respect Sri Aurobindo great lot. And believe me, my dear friends, The day final, my supervisor came and told me that we have reached we are seeing the light of the tunnel. That was my last sentence of reading Sri Aurobindo's Life Divine. 125 days, 123 days to be precise, during the night time, during the working hours, I read Life Divine, and it was so smooth, everything. So that is a challenge actually we can give the mother. The more we work for you, you take care of our things. And that is what she does. I think this is the attitude we should have in our daily work.
Thank you for that lovely, lovely explanation. And I'm sure we will all try to implement this thought in our day, at least today. And I hope we don't forget it for the next few days. Thank you for this lovely session.
Thank
I
you.
request the participants to come back tomorrow. Namaste. Thank you very much.